Hello, I'm Tom with San Diego Solid State, and today we're going to be doing another glass replacement video, this time on a Pioneer SX-636. The 636 and other models in this line are similar to other Pioneers in terms of how you replace the glass, but there are some key differences, primarily being this button right here. Most of the X3X series have either one or two buttons up in this corner. So that has some ramifications for how you remove the glass as well as how you replace the glass. So that's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to do this video in two parts. The first part will be to remove the glass, and then the second part will be to install new glass. Okay, before we get started, let's gather our tools. You're going to need a 12mm deep socket, but in a pinch you can get away with 1/2 inch if you don't have metric. You need a Phillips screwdriver. You're going to need a brand new extra sharp razor blade. You're going to need a couple of different scraping tools, like something that's plastic. You don't want to use metal on this, but plastic scraper of some kind. And then also, I find this really helpful. This is a bike tire changing tool. It's hard plastic, quite solid, and really good for getting some leverage to help carefully pry the glass off. The other tool you're going to need is some sort of heat source. Now, I have a high-powered soldering rework station here that will put out pretty much any temperature I would need. But you can use a heat gun or a hair dryer if it's a good quality hair dryer that gets pretty hot. The only difference is if you're using a hair dryer, it's going to take you a lot longer to heat up the glass. So you're going to have to be extra patient with that. Now, removal of the front faceplate is similar to pretty much all Pioneers in the SX line from the 70s. So once you remove the case, you can pull these knobs right off. And that exposes the two nuts on the front and two screws up here. And it comes right off. Now, the first thing you want to do is flip this over, and you're going to remove the button sleeve here. So this is just a plastic sleeve to line up the button with the glass, and it's a two-part piece. You just pull this end off, and then this basically just falls right out. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Now, the thing that makes these a little bit different than the other Pioneers is the fact that because it has this button sleeve in it, the positioning of the glass is very important. There's not a lot of wiggle room, whereas on the other models, you have lots of room to move the glass around and it'll still work. So these glass pieces have these stops at the corners to perfectly position the glass so that the button fits in the right hole in the right spot. Now, the first thing you want to do is try and release the glue around where these stops are. So you take your fresh razor blade and just very carefully score right down in there. I need a longer handle, so I'm going to use a utility knife. I should have mentioned that earlier. You don't have to use a raw razor blade. You can use a utility knife. Now, everything about this part is about patience. And then usually you want to try and start on this end, which is the end away from the holes. All right, so after about 5 minutes of heating that end up, I'm going to try see if I can release it. So the trick is to put a little bit of pressure on the front and see if you can kind of just gently pop it out. This is the hardest part and place where you're most likely to break it. You can try from this side as well. Just want to get under there, try and lever it up. I can see I'm getting a little bit of a corner in there, but it's not releasing as well as I'd like, so I'm going to heat it up a bit more. All right, now you can see I've managed to get the scraper in the seal in there, and that's exactly what you want to see. So this is all about patience. If you push too hard and try and lever too much, then the glass will definitely break. And if you're just trying to get this out and you don't really care about the glass, that's not the end of the world, but it's definitely much easier to try and keep it intact. It's less of a mess. So now you can see I'm making some progress. I'm getting under here. I've got this whole scraper down at this end. So this is the critical junction where you're going to be tempted to pry this up too much and you're going to break the glass. This is where you really have to be careful and just kind of work it down the line. So as you go down the line and work that scraper under there. See, I can move it down a little bit. Don't push it further than it wants to go. Now this is where you can try and use your bicycle tool. You can kind of use it to push up underneath here. Let's see how released this is. This is released down here. So the other thing, before I do that, I'm going to try and get in from the front here and release this on this side. But now, as I get to this stop here, I want to give it a little bit of extra leverage. So you just gently, and this is where you have to be really, really careful. If you put too much pressure here, it will definitely crack down the middle. You want just very gentle, even pressure. If you feel like it's binding up at a spot and you're worried about breaking it, then you can move on and just work on other spots, because eventually all this will loosen up enough that it will come out. But if you force the difficult spots too soon, then you definitely run the risk of breaking it. So I'm just going to focus down on this end down here a little bit more. All right, now you can see right there, it basically, once I got down to that end, it released the whole glass. This is what you want to see. Like eventually it gets to the point where the glass is, or the glue is weak enough that the glass sort of just pops out like this. And just gently, you have to get in there a little bit and free it up. And now it really wants to come out. So you just have to be patient still. Use your plastic scraper, get in where it's still sticking. And you're good to go. Voila, intact glass. It's exactly what you want to see. Now to get the new glass in, you want to clean this up a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like I wouldn't recommend going in with a solvent or anything like that. But you do want to get the chunks of glue out of here. That concludes part 1 of the video, which took about 30 minutes to complete. So for part 2, we're going to move on to installing the new glass. So stay tuned for that.